I want to get into this here because we want to talk about this a bit today. So this was the tweet that started it all. On the 29th, Cenk Uygur was overwhelmed with optimism. I've been trying to figure out why I'm more optimistic now than I was before the election, even though I was so against the guy who won. I know now. MAGA is not my mortal enemy, and neither is the extreme left. My mortal enemy is the establishment, and they have been defeated. It's not just...
Jimmy Dore takes aim at Cenk Uygur in this explosive clip, calling him out as a liar and a hypocrite. Recently, Cenk has shown a surprising shift in his political stance, expressing some level of solidarity with the MAGA movement. This sudden change hasn't gone unnoticed, with Jimmy Dore and other YouTube personalities criticizing the irony of Cenk now advocating unity when he was a major force in creating division in the first place.
Is it the same establishment you took $20 million from? You mean that establishment? One of the top donors in the Democrat Party? You mean one of the guys, one of the most rich, most powerful owners of establishment corporate media, Jeffrey Katzenberg? You mean that's your enemy? Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah, well, maybe he's out of money. Maybe he's his enemy now. Maybe they ran
that's
it out. Yeah, that's it. No more use to him. It's not just that the establishment candidate lost. It's that their media is mortally wounded. The source of their strength was not insipid politicians like Mitch McConnell and Joe Biden. The source of their strength was their propaganda machine, the mainstream media. Now, online media is strong enough that their oppressive monopoly on the American mind has been broken. Now we're in the jungle. They hate that. I love it.
This is hilarious.
Oh, you haven't read this thread yet?
No.
Oh, okay. Yeah, this was the thing that kicked it all off. This uncontrolled marketplace of ideas is where I'm home. I'd rather be in the populist woods than an establishment prison. So Megan Murphy, I don't know who this is, says, I've never seen anyone jump ship faster. Shortly after Kamala lost. Gunther Eagleman, this is a MAGA account here. They haven't been defeated, and for you to assume that shows your naive nature. They still have a stronghold in the Senate, which you still ignore. You have trashed Trump and MAGA for years. Stay in your lane and accept that you and yours suffered an embarrassing defeat, Cenk. So, yeah, that's the MAGA crowd that's not buying it. And then this is one of the big lib accounts, Joe. Obeying in advance. People warned me you'd do this, and here you are. So, really getting it from all sides, as you could have predicted. Mike Benz was ambivalent. Based? Question mark? I like that. I like that one. Maybe. Well, let's see. What do you think, Jimmy? Based or not based? Because this was the tweet that you put out. You quote tweeted a later tweet here, because obviously Cenk got a lot of pushback to this, and a couple weeks later he says, some folks on the left seem to genuinely think that just talking to the MAGA right wing is evil.
Yeah, like you.
Yeah, like you.
Yeah. You're the guy who did that. You pushed that for years and years, since 2016. They called me a right winger because I didn't look at the MAGA supporters as my enemy. I looked at my enemy as the establishment, and that they want us to be divided, just like Cenk Uygur did and Anna Kasparian at the Young Turks. And when I brought on a Boogaloo Boy, who, by the way, we agreed with on at least 6 out of his 10 top issues. And my whole thing was, I sell a T-shirt. Frederick Douglass said, I'll join with anyone to do good and no one to do bad. And that's been my message since at least 2016. They're not your enemy. They're your neighbor. And that's exactly divide and conquer. And they've been pushing that. They slandered me and smeared me for years.
Ever since Donald Trump won the election, it feels like some folks on the left are trying to rewrite history, conveniently forgetting their own actions and statements. Cenk Uygur from the Young Turks is a prime example. He was relentless in going after MAGA supporters, calling them fascists and portraying them as threats to democracy. He was one of the loudest voices on this. Now, suddenly, Cenk seems to be singing a different tune, showing support for MAGA, or at least trying to align with them. And honestly, it's hard to take seriously. Jimmy Dore hasn't held back in calling out this blatant hypocrisy, and plenty of others are doing the same. Even the Young Turks seems to be in turmoil, with internal backlash over this dramatic shift. How do you go from labeling someone as the biggest threat to democracy to suddenly cozying up to them without completely wrecking your credibility? It's wild to watch. But hey, that's just my take. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to leave a like. Now, Let's jump back in.
I wouldn't go because I wouldn't hate my neighbor, and I wouldn't pretend that my mother-in-law, who's a wonderful person, was a teacher her whole life. Her students loved her. She's 100% Mexican, and she supported Donald Trump. And I'm like, well, that's when I knew. I'm like, well, what does it do? Hate my mother-in-law? I love my mother-in-law. She's a great woman. She loves me. She's a good Christian. And that's why she voted for Trump, because of abortion. That doesn't make her a bad person. And she hated the Clintons, which is what we bonded over, actually. So I was, again, 8 years ago, I was saying exactly what Cenk is saying, and it would be okay if Cenk came out. What you have to do is make a serious act of contrition. You have to come out and say, hey, you know what? I was the worst person. I did that. I demonized the right wing. I called them white supremacists. I called them all racist. I called them all sexist. There's a video where he even called them all pedophiles. He said that's why they're always talking about pedophilia, because they're all pedophiles. He said that.
Right.
He said he smeared anti-war journalists like Aaron Mate, said they're being paid by Russia. Everybody was a Russian. Everybody was a traitor to our country. Jimmy Dore was a right-winger and a grifter because I interviewed a Boogaloo boy. Meanwhile, he interviewed David Duke. Nobody, I guess he still got to be a lefty, but he's not a lefty. He's a union buster, and he's pro-war, and he's pro-censorship. And he's pro-big pharma. Right? He didn't have one critique of the COVID narrative. So that's the opposite of a lefty. Cenk Uygur is an authoritarian, and he's illiberal. He's not part of the liberal class. People who call themselves liberal today are not liberal. They're illiberal. You can't be pro-war, and you can't be pro-censorship, the hallmark of a dictator and authoritarianism, and you can't be for mandating medical treatments. So they're the opposite of liberals. They're not liberals. They're illiberals. And so if he was genuine about this, he would start off with an admission that he was the worst purveyor of the thing he now claims to be against, demonizing Trump voters as their enemy. He was the worst who did that, constantly calling them fat. Up until 5 minutes before the election, he was calling them all fascists, including Trump. And then, so it's amazing how he's Trump's a fascist. We got to defeat MAGA. Those guys are, and then all of a sudden Trump wins. He's like, we win. How does that, it'd be like if I was like, I was
with you guys the whole time.
Yeah, but with you there the whole time. Oh, these assholes on the far left. Oh boy. They used to call him far left when he kind of tepidly supported Bernie Sanders until he couldn't wait to get rid of him and support Hillary Clinton. I was the last holdout for Bernie Sanders in 2016 at the Young Turks. But anyway, now he just apes the establishment. So he's just aping establishment talking points, calling people far left, calling people far right. And the right wing, a lot of them are sniffing him out. Matt Walsh didn't go along with it. He said, Cenk Uygur's been calling us fascist for 53 years. He's now 54. And now I'm supposed to think that his opinion is worth anything? He's been wrong his whole life. And so I'm with him on that. And there isn't a war that Cenk Uygur didn't like. Cenk Uygur was for the Iraq war before he was against it. He was for the Afghanistan war. He was for the expansion of the Afghanistan war. He was for the Libyan war. He was for the Syrian war. And he lied. He lied on television. He lied on the Hill, saying that he never was for bombing Syria. And there's a 10-minute video of me debating him about that, and he was for it. So he is one of the sleaziest media figures go.
Jimmy Dore called out Cenk Uygur for his dramatic political shift, highlighting the hypocrisy of someone who once labeled MAGA supporters as fascists, now aligning with them. Cenk was known for his aggressive rhetoric, but with the narrative no longer resonating, he seems to be pivoting. Dore and others argue that if Cenk wants to support MAGA, fine, but he should stop there. No advice, no opinions, no attempts to reclaim credibility after years of division. The sudden change feels insincere and leaves many questioning his motives. What's your take on this strange political move? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more.